Good day, everyone. My name is Pius Kadon, and the program is Political Clinic on the News Chronicle. Political Clinic is one program that talks about current political issues in the country, and then we get to, bring in guests who are experiencing that particular field, especially the field that we're going to talk about, to come share what they think about the topic at stake. And on today's edition of the program, we shall be looking at something that has been on everybody's lips, and I'm talking about the Christian genocide claim. And then we're going to look at Trump's threat. It's no longer news that the US president has issued a stern warning to Nigeria as regards insecurity situation in the country. And then we're going to look at that particular directive by Trump and, of course, the Nigerian reality. And on today's edition of the show, we're going to be speaking with Mr. Zariye. Pardon me if I didn't get that name right. Mr. Zariye Yusuf.
That's right, yes. That's right, Zariye.
Mr. Zariye Yusuf, who is the former national coordinator of the Middle Belt Patriots. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I want you to help us connect the dots as to what you think about the Christian genocide claim in Nigeria. And then, good thing you are from the Middle Belt, from your designation, and the Middle Belt is one of those regions in the country that has been worst hit when it comes to clashes, skirmishes, herders, farmers clashes, and or whatever you want to call it. But then it has been, it has been more like the epicenter of violence when it comes to insecurity in the country. So help us connect the dot when it comes to, that claim of Christian genocide. Is there a Christian genocide in Nigeria?
There has been for almost 2 decades, since 2015. And the whole idea is that it just resurged again. So it's a region that has always been a target of the Islamists, not just now, but since the days of the Danfodio Jihad. Now, it is because, as at the time of the Danfodio Jihad, records were not being kept, but the target was the Middle Belt, the nationalities in the Middle Belt, their women, their children. The whole idea is Islamic conquest, enslavement, and all of that. The people fought and basically ended that bloodthirsty pursuit of expansionism, Islamic expansionism. So the Nigerian state came in from the amalgamation up till the time of independence. And then some people felt they had the responsibility to continue in the same line. For instance, during the Ahmadu Bello area, Sardauna Sokoto era, he didn't really, it wasn't exactly the use of violence physically, but it was the use of political subjugation. In other words, wherever they had dealings with people from the Middle Belt, they would rather force any figure to turn to Islam before he works with the government and all of that. And they went ahead forging emirates. All of the emirate, anywhere you find an emirate in the Middle Belt, it was forged. And the whole idea is to create a false impression that Islam has conquered the place, just the way of late Nasir el-Rufai did. After the Christian monarch was assassinated, they converted his monarchy to an emirate in Kaduna State. So there is a genocide. But I have a concern with people in the media. Until date, they keep saying the claim of a genocide. And you are tempted to ask, do you not see the mass graves? Do you not see the dead bodies? Do you not see empty places?
But some people are still holding the narrative that regardless of whether we're having this genocide, you also have the Muslim community also being attacked. That is why, safe to say, it's a claim.
Yeah. So in that regard, nobody has ever claimed, whether from the Middle Belt, whether a Christian or anywhere, that Muslims are not being killed. But here's the question: why is it that you only find the Muslims speaking about being killed only when they want to deny that there is a Christian genocide? An example is if the Christians feel you killed 400 people in this community, you killed 200 in this community, you are targeting us, and we are crying out for attention. We are crying out for something to bring this to an end. And the Muslim wakes up and said, hey, Christian, this thing you are complaining about is also happening in our region. So let's join forces and bring an end to it. But the Muslim will only say to you, this thing you are talking about, it is also happening to me. So you are lying. People should just
there's like a selective silence when it comes to yeah.
So it's more or less, you want to ask yourself, all of this while that they've been killing the Muslims, where are all those people? Why is none of them complaining? Why are they quiet? Why is it only when the Christian says, look at what is happening to me, then the Muslim will say, it's also happening to us. But in this case, instead of saying, so the way you want to solve it for the Christians, also solve it for us, but they will say, ignore the Christians, they are lying. Why is it always like that? The answer is simple. It is because of the people doing the killing. They are an Islamist militia. Their target is to conquer the region with a jihad. That is basically the reason why the silence is there. And then when you begin...
But if you look at the style of these terrorists, you notice that some of the Muslim communities that have been attacked, they tag those Muslims as not being Muslim enough, before attacking them, or they just see them as people who are more like infidels, so they don't really belong to them, so they attack them. That is why you see a section of the Islamic community telling you that this is purely a human problem, not a religious problem. It is purely an insecurity problem that Nigeria has been bedeviled with for quite a long time. So trying to paint the narrative that Christians have been killed much more than the Muslim is something that is unfounded. So there's always that.
Yeah, so they would always claim, the key people doing this narrative of genocide denial are primarily the Muslims and the northern Muslims.
But we have a lot of Christians too, even from far south, saying there is no genocide.
Yes, but typically in the strategy of Islamists, there are faces they use so that it doesn't appear, because the mission is to make sure that the world doesn't understand that it is related to religion. You understand what I'm saying? That is the reason why you have church leaders. Even though he has buried hundreds of his members, he will still come out and tell you it is not a genocide. What they want to do is to make it an academic issue, to intellectualize it, to just look at it as a security issue. But then the question they would ask you is simple. Where can you actually identify a Christian militia that is acting on behalf of their faith, killing Muslims? But we have too many examples of Islamist militia that kill for the sake of their religion. And you rightly mentioned it. The Muslims that they kill, they generally refer to them as collaborators. Okay? Our brothers that have refused to support our ideology and are opposing us. An example is, what do you think will happen to Christianity today in Nigeria if the moment we identify a pastor claiming that it is not a genocide, then we start killing his church members or we go and assassinate him? What will you make of Christians? Will you not also understand that it is Christians that are doing it? So the best that Christians will do is to come out and say, ignore this man, he is lying. Or ignore this man, he possibly might have taken money. Or ignore this man, he possibly might be looking at some political benefits. So there are always people like that. As a matter of fact, there was a pastor that came out and he gave good examples of targeted attacks on Christians. But he ended up by saying that it didn't start today. This kind of no be today, so stop calling it a genocide. But it has been referred to as a genocide as far back as 2015. Because it was obviously targeted.
So before I have you look at, the threats by Donald Trump. Nigeria is one country that, be it the South, or in fact, even if you are resident in the North, you understand that both those who carry the cross or those who even carry the crescent, most of them are under one embrace. Most of them, you discover that in a household, you have both the Christians and then you have both the Muslims. And that is why some people are tying this whole conversation to the fact that, okay, the Nigerian government should begin to look at the fact that what we are facing is a threat to human life, not just a particular religion, and then begin to face this issue of insecurity headlong without looking at whether there is a particular religion that is being targeted. I mean, we should be worried as a country that it took a tweet from Donald Trump for us to, redouble our effort and even see the need for us to flush out some of these, terrorists. So shouldn't we be looking at that part of insecurity that has, eaten deep into the fabric of this country for quite a long time? A lot of people have taken the fall as a result of these particular, abnormalities. So shouldn't we be looking at, okay, we have an issue of insecurity, regardless of whether they are targeting a particular religion? How do we face this headlong without trying to look at the political angle, without trying to look at, some conspiracy theories? I mean, lives are involved. Do you think that this is a time for the Nigerian government to begin to take insecurity more seriously?
The only conspiracy theory in this scenario is one, what they have always used as a cover-up for the genocide, which is the farmer-herder clash, the climate change-induced crisis, and the so-called denial of a genocide. That is the only conspiracy theory. But for anybody to have been following what's happening in the Middle Belt, how they massacre people, how they target communities, how they kill women and children and all of that, and want to deny a genocide, it doesn't make sense. So trying to deal with the issue objectively does not involve denying what it is, because you can only speak about objectively dealing with a situation when you agree to define it as what it is. An example is, you can't treat me or cure me of malaria when you see all the symptoms of malaria and I say to you, no, it is not malaria, it's just stomach ache. So just give me something that will calm my stomach ache. And then I say to you that you are a conspiracy theorist to tell me I have malaria. It simply means I'm going to die of it. Now, dealing with the issue is not the surface PR stunt that the government is pulling, telling stories about the military neutralized 60 bandits, the military neutralized, all that is rubbish. The only thing that will make sense in Nigeria today is when you give us the names of the people that have been sponsoring these killers, the names of the people that have been sponsoring the false narrative that has hidden the genocide for almost 20 years, bring them out. Those that deserve to be eliminated, even in the course of arrest, get them eliminated. Those that deserve to rot in jail, take them to jail. Those that will be handed over to international communities to face justice, hand them over. When you take that step first, then we will understand your policy has changed. But anybody can go to the bush and shoot anywhere, burn down a few camps and come out and tell you that he has conquered terrorists.
In a way,
the terrorists are not there on their own. There is somebody, the AK-47s, the RPGs, the distance they cover from Mali, from Libya, from Central African Republic, or wherever it is they came from, there is somebody responsible for that. So until the government eliminates those people, tells Nigerians, actually, this person and this person and this person are the ones behind it, it's not going to end.
Yeah, in a way, you're trying to say you're backing the interference, so to speak, of Donald Trump.
Yeah, I am backing the interference to a certain limit. I am not backing. We'll sit down and then we'll start seeing paratroopers dropping into our country with tanks, with all of that. That's not what I mean. By interference, I mean, because when you listen to Trump's statement, he didn't start by saying, I'm coming. He started by telling the Nigerian government, there is a moral responsibility, legal responsibility on you to stop the genocide. You know, internationally speaking, once an issue has been identified as a genocide, a foreign country has the right, the moral and the legal right to step in and stop it. And also bring the perpetrators to book. Yeah. Now, the problem we have in Nigeria is that the sponsors of this killing, who mostly are players, possibly in government or formally have held political offices, they don't want to be held accountable. And that is why their best option is to create a false narrative to Nigerians that the plan of Mr. Trump is to come in and attack Nigeria. So as Nigerians, we have to stand together and resist it. But it's a lie. The mission is to interfere or intervene with the sole aim of eradicating the terrorists and bringing to book government officials that have been linked to these killings.
You're saying that there are should I call it conspiracy theory? That in some quarters that the US president is probably coming to milk our natural resources, and then there are other people in this particular administration saying this is the handiwork of the opposition leaders. Do you key into that? Do you believe in this narrative?
Now the narrative. Let me first solve that of the issue of the opposition leaders. The reason why they perceive any moral responsibility, any moral sympathy to the genocide that they have been denying from foreign land The reason why they simply perceive it as it is an opposition work is because they came into power by blackmailing the sitting government, frustrating the effort. In their own case, they frustrated the effort of the then government to fight terrorism, and they capitalized on it to come into power. They were flying to the US, sabotaging the government, even though the man in power then was weak enough not to deal with them the way he should have dealt with them, especially in the regards of what was perceived as sabotaging. An example is, why would I sabotage the effort of the country to access arms to fight terrorism? That is almost similar to treason. But the government then was weak, so they allowed them. So because they have used foreign influences to pursue their political agenda, the fact that now there is an obvious genocide, they will likely see the response of any foreign country to stop the genocide and bring the criminals to book as an opposition. And that is basically why their first response was, it is opposition leaders. It is opposition leaders. Is it opposition leaders left that are leaving 400 corpses dead? Is it opposition leaders that are arming the terrorists? Is it opposition leaders that have sacked communities in the Middle Belt? Is it opposition leaders that have made it that some children are up to 12 years old in refugee camps, in IDPs? They have never returned to their homes. They were given birth to in primary schools and they are still growing there. It's not opposition leaders. It is a failed government that is sympathetic to terrorists. Then the issue of coming to milk our resources. I don't know how well you travel, especially around the Middle East and the Northeast. The resources that we don't even know that we have, they have been milking it since 2015 when Buhari came. It is Chinese people that are doing it. So how comfortable are they with the Chinese even know what the people are taking? And they are saying America. Actually, which country will come in and have business with another country without putting its interest first? So if the Americans feel, okay, there's a moral demand here, let's come in and solve it and use it to also negotiate for our economic benefit. It is up to Nigeria, if the government knows it is innocent and wants to safeguard the lives of citizens, to say, all right, how do we collaborate in this regard, the US? And the US will say, we'll give you technical support, we'll give you sophisticated arms, we'll give you possibly expertise, and then we eradicate this thing, and then we deal with it this way. But the Chinese have been stealing our resources for a long time. What have they brought in turn? Is there anything you can actually sit down today and say the Chinese brought into our country that is serving our purpose? Is it infrastructure? No. What about the rails? How functional are the rails? How many times have the rails scattered and they looked as if because it rained, it became something else? But they are on a daily basis lifting minerals and then all kinds of, resources from Nigeria. What have they given us in turn? Is it the money we have been borrowing that politicians are using to acquire private jets, expensive cars, and then mess around all the time? So basically, it doesn't add up.
I mean, in a way, there are most Nigerians even believe that. Some Nigerians actually would believe that what the leaders or what the Nigerian leaders have taken from them is going to be much more than whatever Trump is going to take from them. So a lot of them are consoled in the fact that you guys have been taking all of these resources all along. So what is even left for the foreigners to come and take? So, I mean, just to add to your thoughts on that.
The story of taking resources is just a diversion. An example is if it takes the center stage, we'll start defending, well, after all, and the Chinese are stealing resources. After all, the government officials are stealing money, taking it outside, blah, blah, blah. If Trump comes, they will create a completely different conversation. The conversation is simple. There is an ongoing genocide, and it has been on for almost 2 decades. We need to bring an end to it. The people sponsoring the genocides are the same forces behind this conversation. It is diversionary. The whole story about resources is to divert attention to something else. You are burying people in their hundreds daily. And then you have refused to stop it. You have refused to proscribe the groups that are doing it. You have been extending hands of friendship to the groups, calling it peace talks. Okay? You have been absorbing them into our society, into the military. They are still killing people. And someone is saying this is a genocide, which the country has been crying since from 2015, even before 2015. And you are saying, no, it is a matter of resources. So you want to feed the masses with the debate about resources while a genocide is being pursued. Right. So it's the responsibility of government. That basically is it.
All right. So because we're pressing for time, I would like you to react to maybe 1 or 2 questions before, we draw the curtains on today's edition. Now, in Trump's, bold statement, he mentioned that he was going to, or he is, looking at cutting some of the foreign aids that Nigeria enjoying from the United States. And then from the data available to me, from over 9 years, I'm going to read it out to you before, have you react to it. Now, in 2015, some of the foreign aids Nigeria has received from the United States, which includes aids in the area of security, health, education, and then human rights and all. In 2015, what we got was $446 million. In 2016, what we got was $543 million. In 2017, what we got was $643 million. In 2018, what we got was $877 million. In 2019, what we got was $761 million. In 2020, what we got was $880 million. In 2021, what we got was $922 million. In 2022, what we got was $974 million. And in 2023, what we got was $1 billion. And then in 2024, what we got was $783 million. So if the Trump administration is going to cut some of the foreign aids we receive, ranging from, aids we receive in the area of education, in the area of human rights, in the area of insecurity, which is, the issue at stake. Do you see these affecting us as a country? Do you see it as affecting the fight against insecurity in a way? Mr. Zari, are you there? Can you hear me, Mr. Zari?
Yes, I can. Pardon me, I had a little glitch with my phone, so I needed to just start with another phone. Thank you. Sorry.
All right, no problem. So I don't know if you got my last question.
Yes, I know you were in the year of 2017, I think. You mentioned 2016.
Yeah.
2017 funding, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned all of them, but then you, like you said, the technical glitch.
I have that reel.
Okay, let's just look at last.
Yeah, I got the deep.
All right, let's just look at last year. Nigeria got $783 million. So if the United States is going to cut ties with us when it comes to foreign aids, and then these foreign aids, we're looking at health, we're looking at education, we're looking at human rights, we're looking at security, which is one of the major issues. If they take those things away from us as foreign aids, will it affect fight against insecurity? Will it affect our economy, so to speak?
Well, the question would be that, were we actually using those resources to fight insecurity, or were we pampering and enabling the exponential growth of terrorists? Prior to those years you started listing, you will remember that it was the APC that made the government of the US as at the time to refuse to sell arms to the president of Nigeria, not even give him aid, that Nigeria will use its money to acquire arms. The Americans refused to sell arms to them. So the APC frustrated the effort of the PDP to fight terrorism. And when, even in that regard, the PDP was close to crushing, Goodluck Jonathan was close to crushing terrorists, the APC went on a campaign. The likes of Buhari and many other northern politicians claimed that it was a war against northerners. So they incited the North and they fiercely resisted the war against terrorism.
That is quite arguably, because at the tail end of Goodluck Jonathan's administration, we saw lots of outcry from all divides needing a new administration. So just to put things in perspective, it is quite
No, it is not arguable. The idea is, let us frustrate the fight against terrorism, and then let us tell the people the government has failed. Why do you think they stopped selling arms to Goodluck Jonathan? It was because they went to the US and told the American government to stop selling arms because they claimed he was using it to kill Muslims. Maybe you may not remember that they have also done this genocide claim at some point at ICC. They accused Ihej Rika that he's an Igbo man who is trying to use the war against Boko Haram to revenge what happened during the war. So maybe I don't really expect you to accept that openly, but then I am not a politically correct individual. I know your duty will have to make you to be in the balance. But they frustrated the sales of arms to Nigeria and frustrated the war against terrorism. And when it got bad, they used it as a campaign tool to get into power. Primarily, they got into power solely with the influence of the United States. Now, all of these supplies of money that kept coming from the US, it didn't just come, it came also in form of training, it came in form of supply of weapons and all, its super tucanos and all that. All of these things were never used to fight terrorism. They were used to appease terrorists, in something that Buhari felt was the turn of the North to also pamper terrorists, the way the Niger Delta people were given amnesty. That was basically what happened. So if they stopped the sale of arms and all of that, it would have affected our war against terrorism if actually we were using those resources to fight terrorism. Because if we were using them, we would have crushed them by now. But what has happened is that Boko Haram has grown bigger. More terrorist groups have risen. They have become international, like the Islamic State in a West African province. The ones that are in the Middle Belt, primarily targeting Christians and killing them and sacking their communities, they have called them hiders. So they don't even look like terrorists. The ones that are in other parts of the country, they refer to them as bandits and terrorists, but they are all terrorists. So they have been growing in number. And then the attitude of the government has been becoming more and more sympathetic. When last have you ever heard that the government used any airstrike or any super tucano to gun down terrorists? The ones we know, I mean, there are so many things I don't even want to put you in a difficult position to say. So this will not frustrate our war against terrorism because we have not been fighting terrorism. But it will put pressure on the government to, take responsibility and save the lives of people. That basically is all I have to say.
All right. I mean, for want of time, I'd like you to react to this before we, draw the curtains on today's edition. Some people also believe that the Muslim ticket that was flown by this administration also contributed to the whole call for, the whole call by, there's this claim by, but there's this claim anyway that the Christian Association of Nigeria actually, forwarded some of these complaints to the United States or even other, international communities for them to come, react or for them to intervene on the situation. So do you see that the Muslim ticket that was flown by or that we're currently having as a country contributed to, the politics of things in the genocide, allegations and all? And if at all you saw that as a factor, do you also see that it is going to affect this administration's return in 2027, or there should be some sort of alteration by this administration to, secure a second term?
Well, you see, let me just tell you something. The Muslim ticket is not the cause of anything. It is the result of something.
No, I was going to say
it is the result of...
Okay, just to put things in perspective, what I'm trying to say is that some people believe that the Muslim ticket, amplify the call for intervention, amplify the call from, most Nigerians here who are Christians, to reach out to international communities to come intervene in the situation. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, under Buhari, there were similar calls about genocide, possibly more fiercely. The only difference then was that the kind of government that was in the US was the Democrats, who happened to have grown to be sympathetic to the global jihadist cause, Islamism. So each time Nigerians spoke out, you remember the whole story of farmer header clash, climate change induced crisis and all of that. It thrived very well under the Democrats and Buhari. So Buhari had a pastor as his vice president, and that formed a face such that while the genocide was going on under him, everybody just felt it's not possible to have a genocide when there is a Muslim president and then the vice president is not just a Christian but a pastor. Okay? So the Muslim presidency is not the reason why people are calling it a genocide. People have called it a genocide long before the Muslim presidency came. But of course, the Muslim presidency is a reflection of something, that it is true that people are saying there is an agenda of Islamization in the country, similar to what happened in Kaduna State, and the consequences that the Christians in the state suffered is basically what is happening at the national level. But it will be illogical to conclude that possibly it's because there's Muslim presidency, that's why they are saying it's a genocide. Maybe if it was a Christian that was in power, they will not say it's a genocide. No, it's not true. It has been a genocide long before the Muslim presidency came.
All right.
And yes, it will affect it could have some profound effect in 2027 election.
Okay,
Negatively.
I was going to say you should wrap up with that, but then good thing you came up with that. So I want to thank you so much for being a part of the discussion on
Thank
today's
you so
edition
much.
of the program.
Yeah.
And I must say that your submissions were quite insightful and profound. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
Zirihi Yusuf. I'm sorry if
Yes,
I
that
really
is.
didn't get it
Yes.
correctly.
Yes, your surname sounds like somebody I know, but sounds like it's a tribal name that I know, but I'm
Yeah,
not really sure.
I'm actually from the North Central. I'm from Nasarawa, so
Okay.
yes,
It's all right.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So thank you so
So
much for being a
thank you so
part of the
much.
show. Yes.
All right.
Okay, listener, I've been
Thank you.
speaking with Mr. Zarihi Yusuf, who is the former national coordinator of the Middle Belt Patriots. He has, helped us to connect the dots on the Christian genocide claim and, of course, the threat by President Donald Trump of the United States. We want to thank you for being a part of the show. We want to thank you for, following us. And then we are encouraging you to share and then, of course, join us on another interesting edition of the show, which comes up next week, Monday. My name is Pius Kadon, and the program has been the Political Clinic on the News Chronicle. Thank you so much for being a part of the program.